Well, hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about the homelessness spike and other topics. It is Tuesday, December 31, 2024, last day of the year. The first thing I've got here is Elsevier, the scientific journal. The entire editorial board, all but one member of the Journal of Human Evolution, resigned en masse. And this is the 20th mass resignation from a science journal since 2023. Uh, the grievances that caused them to do this in this particular case are because the Elsevier has decided to cut the editorial staff by more than 50% for some roles and significantly for other roles, telling people that they have to get the same work done with less than half the people or take 50% pay cuts. And they have begun using AI during production without informing the board. And the AI regularly reformats the manuscript in such a way that changes the meaning, so the editors and the original authors have to try to rush after it and try to prevent it from publishing distorted, wrong views of the science. And the people in the editorial board feels like they can't do their job anymore. So, I mean, I've heard people complain massively about Elsevier for 20 years. And I think it's really up to colleges to stop requiring people to publish in this completely corrupt, expensive institution and accept online publications like AR, XIV. And I don't know how it's going. Thank God I have not worked at a university, not in a long time, where you have to publish or perish. But that's the issue, of course. Uh, and it's been paywalled so that normal people can't get to the articles, and it's a very corrupt system. And then I remember I've seen articles saying that the system of peer review, or they don't pay anybody to review the papers, but you're supposed to review papers of others, that shows that in fact people don't even look at the papers. People have tried publishing papers that are just nonsense, like repeated words, like obviously written by AI, and they just sail right through.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is pretty much fake and a scam.
Yeah. Sam, if I remember, this whole thing was scamming. I mean, this has been going on for a while, but do you recall MSG
Where
being,
they said MSG and Chinese food would hurt you.
yeah,
Yeah, and that turned out to be completely fake, right?
right. Yeah, I think there was absolutely no credible evidence supporting that, but that lasted for 5 years or
Oh, it
more.
was. I remember hearing it as a child from my parents. It was accepted fact at that time.
Yeah. And, I don't know the story behind that. But I do know we've talked about this before as cigarette companies
Yeah.
launched their advertising campaign of mis, dis, and false information about cigarettes causing cancer. And they hired a New York law firm that hired a Madison Avenue PR firm that now has spawned this industry that's been referred to as the merchants of doubt.
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure if Elsevier is part of it. But yeah, that's
No, yeah,
another
I'm not
problem.
saying they're part of it.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is this whole industry that's kind of come up about fake, false information, and maybe it's been there all along.
Well, I think so. And I think, for example, I mean, right now we're headed into an era of unbelievable disinformation with RFK Jr. in charge of the health
Yeah,
programs. And so I think what's happened is the ivory tower was elitist, and they made it so nobody could read scientific papers. They're like incredibly dense and painful to read. Only experts can read them, and they put them in these journals that aren't even accessible to anybody except people working at research universities. So they sort of cloistered away scientific knowledge away from common people. And so the common people sort of rebelled, like RFK Jr., and said, well, why should I take your vaccine? You're all just lying to me anyway.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
we really need a different system. Like I like ARXIV, where our papers are completely public, everybody can see them, and then you have scientific popularizers with podcasts like here on NPR and stuff, where they try to explain this stuff to common people. That's what we need. We need to disseminate scientific information to normal people, accurate information, so they don't just believe entertaining lies that sound good.
yeah. But then, my wife brought up an issue. She was reading about breast implants or silicon breast implants
Mhm.
causing medical issues. And the story I don't recall the story in detail, but what she told me is that there was a claim that they were causing all kinds of illnesses. And I think a handful of women won a very large settlement, which then started the whole silicon implant recall. And women, do you recall that, removing implants that were silicon?
I've heard stories about how they're supposedly bad for you, but I don't really know the truth of it.
Yeah, so mixed into all this happened to be a bad batch of implants that were actually leaking.
Yeah,
That kind of now, now what's the truth? Because the original truth is they weren't causing disease,
right.
but serendipitously, all of a sudden you had a bad batch, or maybe it was intentional, where they got through QA and they were leaking,
Yeah.
and they did cause diseases.
Yeah, and there were a few cases of vaccines that were bad. And of course
Yeah,
that's why the problem with the with disinformation is there's often a little bit of truth in it.
right. Yeah, exactly. And I can tell you with the polio vaccine, that was Berkeley, California.
Yeah,
And it was, I don't remember, was it Bear? Do you recall?
I don't remember. I
I
know
the
there've been a few scandals where there's a bad batch of vaccine that hurt people.
Yeah, but here's the story with the vaccine is it wasn't a it see it wasn't really a bad batch of the vaccine per se. It's they didn't follow the directions to make the vaccine. And what they did was they had a vat of the live vaccine that they attenuated to make the vaccine. And the problem was the live vaccine was too close and was getting airborne and getting mixed in with the attenuated vaccine. And so, therefore, when they were bottling those up, they were actually bottling the live vaccine with the attenuated vaccine.
So the
By
vaccine
accident,
actually made you sick.
the vaccine actually gave, I think, around 90 or 100 people polio.
Oh, man.
But again, it wasn't, it was the directions were not being followed. It was the,
Well, yeah, but realistically, that means, if you go to get a shot, how do you know that that's a good shot?
exactly, right, right, right.
And I can understand people being nervous about that.
Yeah, yeah, I can too. So, this is where we need checks and balances, and those checks and balances weren't there when there was a rush to make the polio vaccine.
Well, of course, that's somewhat
Yeah,
understandable. It reminds me of the story that came out a couple of days ago, the details of how Israel made those exploding pagers for Hezbollah. And they said
yeah,
we spent more than a year, more than 10 years infiltrating the supply chain, making all the batteries have a secret hidden bomb in them that we can remotely detonate. And so I think it's a very good question to say, I wonder how many of my gadgets have a secret bomb in them? Because this is probably not the only thing they did. And they did it
yeah,
10 years in
yeah.
advance. There's probably stuff in the supply chain with real danger added deliberately by some kind of conspiracy. I mean, now we know that really happened.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
that's the problem. I remember when I was a kid, the hippies said the man is listening to all your phone calls and poisoning your water with LSD and stuff. And some of that was true. I mean, that's the problem with all these conspiracy theories. There's about a 1% chance that what they're saying is true.
yeah. There is an element of truth
Yeah.
to it.
But people, take something exciting like all the drugs are bad for you, so I don't need to bother taking my medicine and run with that, when that's far from the wisest
Yeah,
approach.
yeah, yeah. So the Israelis, they developed a battery, like a
Yeah.
lithium battery,
Yeah.
but they had an explosive charge in it.
Yes, and remotely detonated it. And they
And
carefully
so,
marketed it so that the Hezbollah members would buy it. They controlled the intermediate company, so they quoted a really high price to everybody else, but a special low deal to Hezbollah to make sure they would buy it. And then they waited until the right moment to detonate it. And they carefully arranged it so it would only injure the actual people who bought it and not like their kids in the same room and stuff. They put great effort into this for more than a decade.
yeah, interesting, huh?
Yeah, well, that's the military. That's a successful espionage operation.
Yeah. So how do we know that those batteries aren't in the wild someplace?
I don't know how you know.
Yeah.
I would think any military host that is concerned about this would have to have like a physical audit of their devices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully it doesn't go to
Anyway.
hit consumers. Anyway, there's one kind of light one I found on New Yorker has a video which looks like it's from the Netherlands or some nation. It's subtitled where this woman is trying to do her work and she has a CAPTCHA and she can't finish the CAPTCHA, so she calls tech support and says, "I can't finish the CAPTCHA." They say usual stuff. Did you try restarting your computer, restarting the browser? They said, "Well, have you considered that you might be a robot?" What are you talking about? I can't be a robot. And it turns out she is a robot and she didn't know. That's a pretty good one.
That's a very good one.
Yeah,
All right, Sam, I got a really good one for you.
yeah.
This is really amazing. So, have you heard of the PayPal Honey browser extension?
Oh, I didn't know anything about PayPal, but I know the Honey extension helps you find like deals on the internet, like
Yeah,
bargains and stuff, right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, do you know that that's a scam?
I saw some article. I don't know the details.
Okay, here are the details. So, whoever's behind the Honey browser, and I think it was PayPal who sponsored the Honey browser extension. I
I
might
had
be
it at one
wrong.
time. Years ago, it seemed legit as far as I could tell.
Yeah, so what it would do is, I mean, this makes perfect sense. Everybody wants to get the best deal.
Yeah.
So it was an extension. And if you were going out to buy something, and I've never used it, but I'm gonna
Oh, it
kind
would
of,
pop up. It would pop up to say, you know where you have the little place where it said put the discount code? It would give
yeah,
you those discount codes. There's a 10% off on this. Put in this discount code.
I see. And also, if it was out with Amazon or any website,
All kinds of websites. It had a whole bunch of a list, maybe just submitted by contributors or something. Just like your antivirus has constant updates, it had some kind of constant updates to those discount codes.
okay. So here's what really went on is the people, the affiliates who are or let's start it this way. When you got popped up saying, "Hey, there's a lower price you can get over here if you buy from this website,"
Yeah.
turns out that those companies were paying the Honey browser extension people for the privilege of being popped up saying, "Hey, we're a few pennies less." But at the same time, there were referral codes that they were supposed to be getting, which they didn't get. So in the end, what happened was, hold on. In the end, what happened? People were paying more money for an item, and the affiliates weren't getting their referral fees.
So it was a sham both ways.
So it was a double scam. So everybody lost except the Honey browser people.
Yeah. I remember I used it for a while and then I said, it doesn't seem worth the bother. I got rid of it.
Yeah. So as a consumer, you weren't actually getting the best deal you could get, is what
Yeah.
that comes down to.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of when Yelp started. It was also a short-term scam, really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They got sued and supposedly cleaned up around the time Google bought them. So maybe they're honest now, but that's the thing. Anybody that claims to be saving you money, they clearly could just be taking a bribe to not
Right.
save you the money. It's a thing to be suspicious of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, sometimes these deals that are too good are too good.
Yeah, yeah. But what you got to do is put your money in something secure like Dogecoin. Anyway, so
Yeah, exactly. Not Bitcoin, Dogecoin.
yeah. So that gets me to Elon Musk, the king of Doge. And so it's come out now. It's incredible how much Elon Musk is exactly like Donald Trump. Now it's come out that he has a sock puppet account on Twitter named Adrian Dittman, and he gets on voice chat and tries to say, Elon is a great guy. Everything Elon said is true. You should stop picking on Elon. But he forgets to turn on his voice modulator so you can hear that it's him. Which is like what Donald Trump did. He used to call up all the newspapers and say, Donald Trump is really a billionaire. Those people saying he's not so rich are lying. He had a second account called like John Barron or something that he would call and claim to be a secret source for newspaper articles. These guys are just so ridiculously corrupt. And it's I really think we need some diagnosis of this psychological problem. I mean, I've heard of this all my life, how people will say, "Tell me you love me, and I'll hit you until you tell me you love me." And I've wondered, why would anybody want that? You want to make people lie and say you're great who don't believe it, and somehow you think you've benefited from this. Now, he does make money, I guess, by being popular. But it seems like some kind of maybe this is part of narcissism. I don't know where you want people to lie. I remember Bill Gates doing the same thing. They said Bill Gates would not let his wife or his daughter have an iPod. They have to have a Zune, even though it's an inferior product, because he wants people to pretend his product is good and tell him it's good when it's not good. And why would anybody want that? That deserves to have a name for that medical condition where you don't want the truth. You want to hear lies from people you've forced to lie to you, and then you're going to pretend you believe it.
Yeah, you know who would do that was Balmer.
Yeah.
And his dad worked for Ford as a VP, I believe, for a number of years. And that's all Balmer would drive would be Fords. And even though Ford was making a crappy car, they had defects. Balmer was, we drive Fords.
Well, I can see some sort of loyalty in it, but if I was at the top of a company, really anywhere, I'd like to know the truth. Like I remember when I started putting videos online of my lectures, other teachers said, "Gee, I'd have to make sure it was an especially good lecture." And I said, "No, it's truth in advertising. This is what it really is. If you don't like it, don't take the class."
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
it's
You know, when 3 Mile Island happened, was it 3 Mile Island?
yeah, the nuclear
Or Love,
meltdown.
no, sorry, it was Love Canal.
Right.
When Love Canal was happening, they were burning something and it was raining down on people's cars and their houses, and people are inhaling it. I
Yeah.
forgot exactly what that was. Um, and there were workers that worked at Love Canal and they said, look, that stuff raining down may be toxic, but it's money in the bank for us.
Well, that I
So,
understand. I mean, that's like the cigarette companies. At least they're making money. But
yeah,
there's a psychological element too. Anyway, it's it's just amazing how ridiculously corrupt Elon Musk is and how everything's falling apart due to his incredible childish ego. Like he's banning the MAGA accounts that criticize him. So now he's going to be at war with MAGA.
yeah.
It
This is going to be interesting in a lot of ways.
we're really headed into a gilded age of these
Yeah.
oligarchs just playing with us like children playing with toys.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
rest,
Sam, before this, it was TV, radio, and movies,
yeah,
right?
but the oligarchs were much less powerful. I mean, before the Reagan tax cuts and the Trump tax cuts, the income disparity was really very different. In like the 50s, the CEO made like 20 times as much as the average worker, and now it's like hundreds. So, I think we're
Yeah.
headed
Okay.
this is a gilded age where you have the small
Yep.
number of oligarchs that are just insanely rich and powerful that just see us all as like little ants to trample under their feet.
Yeah. 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 All right. What
Anyway,
else you got? You got another story?
well, I got a few more. So, Kristen Sinema, the departing Democratic senator, has been caught just spending her campaign money on herself personally. Now, it's pretty clear she's been doing this all along. She'd been fabulously corrupt all the way through, but now she's not even running for office, and she's spending her campaign funds on like travel and hotels for trips that have nothing to do with political purposes. I mean, she'll probably move smoothly into being a paid consultant. But anyway, uh, we'll see if they actually do anything about this. The degree of corruption of money in our political system just keeps going up and up, and there doesn't seem to be any actual punishment for it. Although I think they finally got Menendez, the guy that was just taking gold bars from foreign countries, and looks like Kristen Sinema is not that bad, but still pretty bad. Maybe enough that she'll actually get punished.
Sam, with the gold bars, it's more difficult to trace.
In his case, it wasn't.
How did he blow it?
he, he was just incredibly blatant about it. He just had them sewed in like his clothes and stuff, and they had like serial numbers on them. It was obvious that he, like, remember Spiro Agnew just took bags
Yeah.
of cash right in the White House.
Yeah.
These guys
Yeah.
think they're immune and they just
Right.
commit their crimes like blatantly, obviously. That's why people often say like the police are stupid. And I say, well, I don't know. The criminals are often so dumb that you don't have to do anything complicated to catch them.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy,
Anyway,
Sam, I got a question for you. what happens if we find out that someone like um, Elon is a mastermind criminal, and it all gets exposed that Tesla or something is just complete fraud? I mean, obviously, I don't think that's the case, but let's
Well,
say he gets,
he's doing a lot of
yeah,
shady things actually, and some of them
yeah,
involve Tesla. I mean, he's pretty much a cutthroat businessman. Like, remember, you see the movie Pirates of Silicon Valley? All the guys like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and everything, they were like breaking laws right and left and sort of stealing stuff to get these companies going.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's Apple, right? They were
Yeah,
making the black boxes to make
yeah,
free long distance phone calls.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a whole lot of how business works is you do illegal things on the way up. Like now it turns out Elon Musk worked illegally, exceeding his student visa. He signed up for Stanford and didn't actually sign up for any classes, pretended to be a student so he could start his company. So he is one of the illegal immigrants he's railing against. You know,
Okay.
this always seems to be. It reminds me of all the anti-gay crusaders that turn out to be secretly gay. You know, whatever you're
Yeah.
screaming about, it's probably what you're guilty of.
Yeah. Yeah. It brings up an interesting case, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting
Well,
scenario.
this is why I like Tim Miller. You know, Tim Miller is the host of the Bulwark, and he used to be a Republican operative, and he said he's gay, and he said I was in the closet, but then I saw all these other Republicans getting caught, and I said, well, I'm not going to be one of them, so I'm just going to come out of the closet. That's a pretty honest way to be. So I'm not going to let somebody else find out I'm gay and expose it.
All right. There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, so the one I thought was most important, though, is the report on homelessness, which really is appalling. Homelessness has raised 18% in the last year in 2024, and it raised 12% the year before. It's now at 770,000 homeless people, the biggest it's ever been. And of course, this is because of the cost of housing. Also, they say natural disasters and inadequate options for migrants, but it's mainly a devastating lack of affordable housing. It really is appalling. And we need to provide housing for people. In addition to being simply humane and moral, it would save us money. People that don't even have a house end up being victims of crime. They end up getting more disease. You end up having to spend a whole lot more money on police and hospitals and everything. You know, it'd be better to just give everybody somewhere to live.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The problem that you'll find is some of these people who are homeless don't want to be housed. It's complicated,
Well,
and there's no one solution that fits all.
it
Let
is
me preface
complicated.
that.
And I know
Yeah.
a lot of them don't want the current homeless shelters because those places are very dangerous.
Yeah.
So you do need to have not only houses, but also like law enforcement in the
Yeah.
houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
of course, now some of them might want to be homeless for like a religious extreme or something, or live like gypsies, but I think that's only 1% of them. Most of them, I think, would really like to have a house if they could only have a reasonable place to live.
yeah. 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 It's and I hate to say it, but it's going to get worse. I
Oh,
do know. Yeah.
absolutely
I've
going to
been
get worse under a
told.
Trump administration. I mean, they're not going to do anything about it. They're the robber barons. They're
Yeah.
just going to send more cops to beat them up or something.
Yeah, so I do know that Berkeley, their homeless population is interesting, gone down substantially. But I'll tell you, Berkeley was paying $750,000. No, $750,000. Yeah, nearly $1 million, three-quarters of $1 million to house one homeless individual.
Well, I know, and
Th-
then that's the problem. I mean, there's
Yeah.
sort of like the medical care. There's an intermediate organization that just serves to steal all the money and not help people.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
And their goal is like the drug treatment centers is to keep you homeless
yeah,
because it keeps their income. And if you can get more people homeless, then they make more money.
yeah. Well, you know, it's like I mentioned, Milton Friedman figured out in the 60s that if you just gave money directly to the poor people, you'd save a whole lot more money than all these
And
intermediate.
yeah, I was looking, that's what they do in Germany.
Yeah. And they
Yeah.
tried many tests of UBI, like Andrew Yang's big thing, where you just give poor people a little bit of money, like 500 or 1,000 bucks a month, and their lives improve incredibly. They don't throw it away on drugs.
Yeah.
Most of them get a house or they fix their car or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right. What else you got?
well, there's two others I've got.
Okay.
One of them is something I've wondered about a lot. I've been talking about I'm teaching a lot of AI classes. And one thing all the Silicon Valley people say is AGI is right around the corner. Within like 2 years, we're going to have artificial general intelligence as smart as a human. And within about 5 or 10 years, we're going to have superhuman intelligence. And I keep saying this is garbage. Well, now I finally found the basis for it. There is a test called the Abstract and Reasoning Corpus for Artificial General Intelligence, the ARC-AGI. And this test is the test that AIs are now passing. The latest ChatGPT o1 is scoring well on this test. And what it is, it's the only benchmark specifically designed to measure adaptability to novelty. It is meant to test the acquisition of new skills, not just the use of memorized knowledge. So the new ChatGPT gets a score of 76%, which is the first time
Okay.
the AI has beaten a human score. What they did was they got mechanical Turk workers to do it, and they scored a little over 75%. So essentially the same as a human. I doubt that difference is meaningful. But the questions are not text-based. They consist of pictures. You have a grid of pixels with colored images shown, and then a second version has been changed in some way. And the question is, what is the rule that changed the initial picture into the second picture? And you have to go click on the dots and try to show that you understand the rule. Like they say, it's rather fun, like playing Sudoku or Tetris. And
Okay.
that test, so that is interesting. That is the sense in which they claim these AIs are now as smart as humans. And so I'd like to look into that more. I I think now what a normal person hears when you say that is that means I can fire my humans and replace them with AI. And I think that is very, very far from true. Because I think the AIs don't even understand that there's a world out there. They don't understand consequences. They don't think like a human. But it does mean, of course, they've gained some kind of ability here to do more tasks. Now, but I think it's ridiculous to call them smarter than a human. Like a calculator is smarter than a human, right? It can multiply 10-digit numbers together in a second, and you can't do that.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
all devices are smarter than a human in one little limited area,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean they can replace an actual human on the job.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So anyway, it's interesting to see the basis for this claim.
You
And
know, Sam, I saw somebody who was visiting in Russia and they went into like the 7-Eleven store
yeah,
and they bought three or four different items and the woman had a cash register, had a calculator, and she reaches over both of them to grab an abacus to figure out how much she should pay.
sure. Just if you're fast, I'm sure it's more convenient once you know how to use it.
Yeah,
Just like
yeah,
for some people, it'd be easier to do it in your head or write it down on a piece of paper. There's plenty of good ways to do it.
yeah, yep, yep,
Yep.
yeah.
Anyway, the last one I thought was interesting. Apparently something's really wrong with EVs. Hertz is getting rid of their EVs. They said they bought a bunch of EVs. They turned out to be a disaster. They're too expensive to maintain and such. So now they are continuing their EV purge. So now if you rent a Hertz EV, they will say, why don't you not return it? Just buy it. And we'll sell you a used EV. And it sounds like a really good deal. A used Chevy Bolt for $18,000 or a Tesla for even less. Those are really attractive prices. And the car I've been driving for 26 years is a rental. I bought, it's like 2 years old. Rental cars are often the best things to buy. They maintain them well. So
Hmm.
I think
Is
that would
that
be pretty,
right?
those EVs are pretty expensive. You would know more than me, right? They're like 60 or 80,000 bucks.
Well, I can tell you with rebates right now, you can get a brand new Tesla for around 20,000.
Wow, that's really
Yeah,
cheap.
yeah, and not the bottom line Tesla. I think the bottom line, the Model 3,
Wow.
is
I
around
didn't,
17, 18,000.
wow, I didn't know they were that cheap. That really is an accomplishment. At that
Uh-oh.
price, they'd be pretty attractive.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay. Then maybe I shouldn't be so impressed by these prices from Hertz.
Yeah, now I also read a rebuttal that's a glorified headline there, and that's not exactly quite the truth.
That could be.
We were just talking about that.
Yes. I mean, is there? some other reason Hertz is getting rid of them. Maybe customers just don't want an EV. I know that
Yeah,
was true when I rented a car. I was nervous about regassing it.
it's complicated. I don't think I think there's more to the story than that.
Oh, there
I'll leave
probably
it
is.
at that.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Well, anyway, that's all the ones I had.
All right, and Sam, let me kind of correct myself. I thought it
Yeah.
was Bayer and it was Cutter Lab with the polio vaccine in Berkeley, California.
Yeah. There've been a few
That
famous cases of medical malpractice. Like I remember the Tuskegee experiment where they deliberately didn't treat black people with the cure for polio for syphilis and just let them get sick. And therefore, they created a whole community of black people that don't trust the medical establishment for a good reason. And when they
yeah,
come around saying you better take this vaccine, they say, I ain't taking anything from you.
yeah. Well, it turns out that it wasn't only blacks that they were after with these medical experiments. It
Yeah.
was also the whites. And there were prisoners that were forced into, these are American prisoners that were forced into testing drugs.
Yeah. I remember,
So, and
yeah,
yeah,
I remember there was a case in a foreign country where the CIA snuck operatives in among the medical personnel that were taking like vaccines to foreign villages. And so people said, don't take that. They're CIA people here to kill us. And it turned out they were CIA people. And they said afterwards they apologized. That wasn't too brilliant, actually, to like make CIA people aim at the doctors.
yeah. Well, that's how they narrowed down where Saddam Hussein was
Oh, yeah.
by giving them injections and then looking at the DNA profile from the needle.
Oh, man.
So, there's some lack of trust now in the Middle East of Western medicine.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, they have some justice in that.
Yeah,
This might
yeah,
be a CIA plot to do us harm, as well as also being medicine that might help us.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Life is tough.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So that's it. We meet
Yep.
up next year.
Yeah, that's right. Next year on Friday,
Next
we'll have
year on
another one.
Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.